The alliances hang out on Discord.
Message me on Patreon to get the link.
And they do all kinds of other cool things. They do Minecraft. What? Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. It's really a community within the community. Anybody can go in the village, facebook.com/Story. There's 160,000+ people on the channel. What's cool about the Discord is that it offers a real opportunity for community connection, friendship, that type of thing.
And it's on Discord, so if you're not a Facebook person, it's for you.
You start off at $1.
Right.
Plus you get exclusives. Story and I are working on a song. So the first 15 seconds of that was on Patreon. Also, at $15 tier and above, when we actually debut the video, they're going to be there live with us. There you are, dear listener.
Buy our merch.
Buy our merch indeed. Charles Alida.
To buy our merch, I was so afraid to put that on your feet.
Yes, dear listener. Yes, dear listener. Yes, dear listener. Okay, guys.
Okay, babe, I clicked that button. Is there anything else I'm supposed to do?
Nope.
Just leave it like that.
That's it. All right, guys.
That was just too easy. All right, you guys.
We are going to give our final thoughts on the movie. First thing in order is shout out to DJ freaking Nick.
I loved this idea. Loved the movie selection.
Fucking legendary DJ
Yeah.
Nick. Really, really good job on this, bro. Really good job on this.
I did not expect the movie to be as deep as it was. I don't know why I expected it to be, you know, like the surfacey sort of storyline, but right from the very beginning, when he was reaching for that box and he like fell to the ground, it already felt like initially you were like, double check to make sure this is the right movie.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the movie started off weird. I thought it was an interesting decision
Christmassy sort of.
I thought it was a really interesting decision to start the entire movie off from Tom Hanks's perspective.
Yeah.
I thought that was...
Yeah.
I'm not sure...
And
like, to this moment, I'm not sure, like...
It did something interesting because when it first started... Sorry, you weren't finished.
No. Go.
It did something interesting because it was like... Initially, you're like, no, we can't trust this guy, obviously, because he was his manager. But then you're like, well, I don't know. It's true. Other people were saying it, but maybe actually he was good. But you know, sometimes stuff gets cast a certain way. So it kind of like switched you to be like, well, maybe. But then, you know, let the story unroll itself by, you know.
Night Ranger. I lost my dad in 2012, and my dad was one of those tough guys, 21-year Army veteran. And so he was never really real with his emotions, so I resolved not to be like that with my kids. I tell them I love them many times a day.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, man.
That's good.
You're right. You're right. Even if they know, Dad's like, oh, he knows. I'm sure he knows, but tell her anyway.
Yep.
Make sure she hears it.
Yep.
That's a good word.
It's 100% true.
That's what we say. That's a good, or we say, that's a word. That means you got it from God. That's what that means. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I literally... It was like it was within this past week, I had that thought in my head, like, you have to tell them, I love you more, and hug them more, my kids. And I'm like, okay, let me do that. So yeah, so that's good that you're doing that. I think for me, like, I have so many kids that if you pass out 5 hugs in a day, you feel like you got everybody, but you didn't.
We're going to take a little moment here. We're going to take a little moment here to celebrate DJ Nick. DJ Nick and this bitch.
I'm going to put this on because I feel like you're going to put some sound.
We don't usually do this. Hey! Do it again! DJ Nick and his bitch.
Shout out to DJ Nick.
DJ Nick and his bitch.
This great movie.
That was, no, honestly, bro, like, I really, like, you know, I wasn't paying attention yesterday when we were, you know, setting everything up. So, like, I was out there taking care of some shit. Shorty called me up in like 5 minutes. She's like, yo, we fucked up, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, it's rush or whatever. So I didn't have time to prep the show.
I posted the date and the time on Patreon, and I still missed it.
I didn't have time. So I didn't know, like, how it was going to work out. Because I knew what I was going to do. I was like, okay, I'm going to hang out from YouTube for 10 minutes, get everybody, and then do it. You know, guys, we got 93 people right now. We had a bunch of people on Rumble and a bunch of people on Twitter. Not a lot of notice. Yeah. You guys did great. A lot of sharing, a lot of liking happening. Yeah. Really, really, really good job. Shout out to Kai from the Woods. Okay, now we're gonna get into the thing. So yes, I was reading a review like recently, like 20 minutes ago or something, and they were angry about the way the movie started because you know, you're focusing on this guy. I mean, Elvis is the guy. Like, why do we care about this guy? And somebody was saying this was that Clark guy story with Elvis as kind of like a side whatever. I thought that was an exaggeration.
I think that's an exaggeration.
I don't know enough about the Elvis life cycle to know what was real and what wasn't. I did ask. I forgot.
I agree.
I forgot who was in there, but I was. You guys helped us out a lot in the chats, by the way. But when he fired him, he said, "You're fired."
Yeah.
And all that, and so I messaged. I said, "Guys, did this actually happen?"
Yeah.
Like it didn't happen that way. That was the you know,
Hollywood.
Yeah,
Okay.
the license is what they call it. You know,
license,
the
okay.
artist's
Yeah.
license to, you know, whatever.
Okay.
But there are a couple themes.
I mean, I thought it was absolutely important to start out with his story first, because I mean,
who
technically,
the manager?
yes, because
Oh, okay. Why? How come?
because it started out with Elvis as a boy, so he wasn't Elvis yet. We didn't know where he was going with his life. It was just like the beginning, and then you're seeing him like peeking into these different things and getting ideas. But it absolutely was important to see that like his manager was, I mean, he came into this lifestyle like he was an orphan who escaped out of that and then went to the carnival, and then he ended up managing the carnival. So like obviously
Who was an orphan?
The colonel was.
I got you.
So I think it was important to have his backstory. Guys, how's our audio? Because I noticed our mic isn't on.
It's okay. They tell us, right?
Okay. So yeah, so I just, you saw that?
I did. Go ahead.
So anyway, so I was like, I liked it because it was starting the story, because the story always starts before you realize that it started. So there was this back stuff going on, and you're like, what's happening here? And you see Elvis like grown with his face going into the water, and so you're like, what? Oh, okay, this is probably like, I thought we were starting with him like grown, and then we slowly see the story start rolling out. So I actually liked it. I didn't know that Elvis was a twin.
Yeah.
That
brutal.
was brutal. And
Brutal.
then when you heard like the mother, like the words spoken in a birth, those echo forever. Like you never forget those words. And so when the manager, who I'm sure heard that information from Elvis, echoes that when it was time for them to sign those papers, I was like, bro, he used that against her. That wasn't.
It was a really, really horrible peek into the music culture and all that. And you know, all of our favorite artists have talked about this. Made all of them talk about it, and it's like Freak on a Leash was about that. Like, it's crazy. One of the themes in the obviously race was a big factor in this dude's life, and he was always trying to like toe the line between compromising, because look, black people are 15% of the country, man. Okay, so the vast majority of the country is white, and at the time they were, I mean, you know what it is. And so he had to balance it out. He had to balance it out, and like I said, I don't know enough of the intricacies. I have heard black people say he stole the music, blah, 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 blah. And for me, it's like, I get it. But at the same time, you know, like when you think about the concept of privilege, and privilege, you know, we should probably come up with a different term, because certain demographics get so triggered when they hear that term. But when you think about privilege, my perspective on privilege is simply an unearned advantage that you have over other people in the same circumstance as you. I don't believe in guilting someone out of their privilege. I am blessed that my mother took me to America at 4 years old. That's a privilege. There are a lot of 4-year-old Mexicans that would love to come here. I did not earn coming to this country. That was a gift that was given to me, and you know, hopefully I can live and move in the country in such a way that the country understands my gratefulness. You know what I'm saying? But at the time that Elvis was around, the sides were just so polarized that it was impossible to keep everybody happy, and it was impossible to keep everybody happy and impractical to side with black people, like exclusively, because he doesn't have that inside of him. He died of a heart attack at 42 years old from running around on stage and doing drugs. I mean, listen, I know people personally who did way harder drugs than this guy and was on stage and putting out way more energy, and they're still here. So my point is, like, I think he was just a sensitive guy, which most artists are, and he was always conflicted, and I think, sure, somebody might send me an article where it's like, Elvis stole all this black music, blah, blah, blah. But there were times in the show, like, for example, we put that black guy up and said, you talk to him, you know, because he's the real star. So that's how you're supposed to operate with your privilege. Elvis obviously enjoyed his riches and the fame and adulation. But he, at least the Elvis I saw in this movie, never forgot how blessed he was to be in part of black culture.
Yeah.
And I thought it was, I mean, to be honest with you, white people, when they do these things, it's almost always horrible. But they did a really, really good job. And so much so that I respect, like, there was a lot of hip hop in that movie. There's a lot of rap in that movie. And
I liked that.
Yeah, and obviously for me, I'm from the Bronx. We invented rap, so I'm like, yeah. But it's like, think about it though. This was a dude who was around mostly black music, okay? And so, like, if we're gonna tell his story and you got a soundtrack, let's go to black music.
100%. I agree.
What would have happened with Elvis and rap and all the rest of it? And like, we don't need white people to like love every square inch and all the rest of it. I don't even need white people to love me. We can just respect each other. But at the end of the day, a musician is a musician, man. And they don't care. All they care about is, yo, that sounds really cool. Or you're a performer. This kid can dance. Holy shit. Michael Jackson, the moonwalk. He got that from the street kids. He didn't invent that. So did Michael well, of course he appropriated it. Yes, he did. And he didn't raise up no kids from the ghetto. So people are human beings. I'm sure there's some racist shit, whatever. But for me, it's like, on a practical level, are you trying to tell me that if you weren't in Elvis's situation, and you wouldn't have took some of them songs or whatever, like, we would have never heard these songs if he didn't do it. See what I'm saying?
No, yeah,
so,
I mean, I get that.
I'm not really with the resentment towards him about that particular situation, but it may just be because I just watched the movie and I'm emotional. You know?
I guess for me, I'm like, just watching, remember when there was that group of like white men around the table with their newspapers?
Yes.
And they were picking up that the things that he were doing was too black. And so then they wanted to shut it down. So that means he can't come out and say, I got this dance from this community. Like, he was already having trouble to get his stuff out there.
Well, what had he seen? Malcolm X assassinated, Dr. King assassinated, John Kennedy assassinated, fucking his brother assassinated.
Yep.
And 3 out of those 4 people were assassinated directly because of racial issues.
Right.
So he's got all these weapons on him. He's paranoid. He's putting guns everywhere. Like, yeah of course. Yeah. And like, that scene was like really impactful for me. Like, I don't want to say I almost like walked out, but I just wasn't prepared for that kind of energy, because I know when he was in the hotel and he heard the little thing and he's going around getting the shit, like, I know that feeling, bro. And it's a really bad feeling. So like, I was like not prepared for it, and then, like, I was like, oh shit, because I was like, oh, one time, you know, like, wow, that shit is terrifying. So for him, like, I really, that was probably the most like impactful scene for me. Wow, was that, you know, like, and then on top of that, he had just gotten in a fight with his girl, the real wife that he loved, and like, yeah, that scene, it wasn't like, I'm not traumatized by any of that shit. It was just, I wasn't prepared, because the movie was kind of going at a certain kind of trajectory, and then it went, whew, now he's got all these guns and he's looking around and shit, and like, he could have killed Shorty, like, cause
that's what I was thinking too.
He was in a you know, not in a right state of mind at the time, and all the rest of it, and like that, when somebody truly, madly, and deeply wants to kill you, like literally kill you, like, or say it this way, you are convinced that the bad guys are truly, madly, and deeply in love with killing you. It's one of the most terrifying feelings in the world, and even after you get out of it, it's terrible.
Wow.
So that was probably the most impactful scene for me in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Just to circle back on the appropriation part of it, when they put that stuff out there, I was thinking, I don't think that he could have broadcasted it where he was getting it from, but I think the only honorable thing to do in a situation like that is to go back to where you got it and give something back. Because, and we don't know, maybe he did. Like, I don't know enough about his life. But, I mean, he wasted a lot of money on just stupid stuff. And a chunk of that money, I think, should have gone back to those people that he was, like, when he was in trouble and he went back to that home. Like, again, I don't know how accurate these stories are, but he certainly got the stuff from the people that he saw. And there was that BB King.
Yeah, where
like,
he said you should be talking to him and all that.
Yeah. Like, I thought that was good. Like, giving him some flowers for that. But I do think that that's important. Like, if, again, we don't know what he did on the sidelines. Maybe he did do that, but because we don't know about it, it is a criticism of mine. Like, you shouldn't take something from a community. And like I said, I don't think that he was able to announce it to the masses, because even as much as he was doing, they were shutting it down and they were coming after him. So obviously, if he came out and said where he got it, that would have been the nail in the coffin. It would have been over with. But I think you don't need to have it broadcasted to go back and say thank you to the people that it came from, because without them, you would have been where you were.
Well, I mean, and to your point, if you actually did that, you wouldn't know.
That's right.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm just, we don't know. So.
Yeah, you can always do more. People would probably classify me as a rabid pro-lifer. Mm-hmm. But I obviously could do more. I could pay more prices. The pro-life thing really hasn't cost me anything. You get threatened by the police, your name's in the newspaper, people threaten to kill you. They ain't gonna kill you. Mm-hmm. Nothing happened to me. Mm-hmm. Nothing happened to me. So, like, I could have done more, So, like, people can always do more, especially when you're in the midst. See, one of the things about this, it's called presentism, but it's this idea that I'm going to hold people 100 years ago or whatever to the same standards that we have today. And on the one hand, it makes sense, because at the end of the day, when God judges you, he's not going to say, well, you were around in the 1950s and everyone was racist as fuck. Right. Yeah. But that's God. God is qualified to say, no, your upbringing had nothing to do with it. But I'm not. I'm not qualified to say that. I don't know why that person did what they did and all the rest of it. So when I think about Elvis and all those things, there's just too many intricacies and variables for me to like. There's just stealing from people, right? There's plagiarism and all that. And then there's and we just had a lady in Harvard get fired for plagiarizing and not telling everybody. So plagiarism is universally looked upon as intellectual property theft.
Yeah.
But replicating black songs, that's kind of like appropriation, where you take something black and then you use it. And somebody said in the thing, that's the most sincerest form of flattery, right? The fact that somebody thinks that your music or your style or your dance is good enough to emulate is it's a concession that you have something that they want. Now, justice would say, well, put the kid who's dancing up on the stage. Elvis? Michael didn't do that. And he's black. He took all that moonwalk shit for them black kids out on the street. He didn't go and put them boys up there on stage with him. He had all these people out here talking about he invented the moonwalk. We didn't figure that shit out till like 10, 20 years after that shit. So the music industry is disgusting and dirty. And when you're in a capitalist context, and this guy, his manager doesn't have a passport, he has no traceable identity, which is extremely strange to me, because everybody who's a top, our government has their eyes and ears in a lot of places. I was just talking to Delaney about this. Our government has their eyes and ears in a lot of places, right? And so they might have known things about dude I just think people like him probably have an FBI detail. Right? Because there's all this racial stuff happening, and this dude can command crowds of... He performed in front of 1.5 billion people! So think about that. You see that thing when we were watching Malcolm? And they beat that dude and put him in a coma, and then Malcolm marched to the hospital. He says, "We would like to see Brother Brown."
Yes,
and then
that's right.
he was pointing and they were following, and then the other guy looked and said, "No, this guy."
Mm-hmm.
You know, the FBI went to Dr. King, told him to kill himself. Like, all types of crazy shit. So, Elvis was massively iconic. And there is a conspiracy theory that Elvis did work for the government.
Really?
Yeah. That's a big, it's a big conspiracy. So...
That's interesting. Actually, you know what? It doesn't even sound that bizarre to me. Because why wouldn't they and why wouldn't he? Because he would be getting paid for it. And...
Guys, we have YouTubers who are getting salaried by people in our government. Okay? So, like, and that's smart. That's smart.
Yeah.
You know, like, I can get a guy and get him to debate a really famous dude and say all types of crazy shit.
Yep.
Anyway, so there's that whole side of Elvis's life.
Yeah.
He's another one of those people where it's just like, I just don't think he stood a chance, man. I don't think he stood a chance. And he did not have but none of them do. That's why they always died at 27, all that shit. And one of the things that I really loved about that movie at the end of it, I don't know if anybody caught this, but there was like, the way the movie ended was like this bright light, and then it shrunk and then disappeared. You know? And so they basically summarize the entire movie in the last 3 seconds of the movie. If you just look at if you follow the white dot, basically.
Well, he wanted to be a rock star, and he wanted to go to that eternal rock.
Yes.
So...
I'm quite familiar with appropriation of a community. I'm indigenous. I see sports teams with Native American imagery. I've seen too much appropriation to not realize how that feels. Yeah, and I don't look at the Washington Redskins as appropriation. I don't look at the Chiefs as appropriation. I just look at it as straight up mockery, especially the Redskin thing. Now, I know there are indigenous people that are like, we don't necessarily have a problem with the Redskin thing. Me personally, I was blown away when I said, okay, what's that team? They said the Redskins. I was like, what's the team? Because it was Little League, and the first team we were playing with, had the logo, and so I'm like, oh, what's that team? And they said the Redskins. I'm like, you shut the fuck up, racist motherfucker. I was 8 years old. He said, no, literally, that's their. I'm like, no, there's no way. There's a fucking team called the Redskins. No. So he went to the coach. Hey, coach, come over here. Animal wants to know what team's over there. He's like, oh, that's the Redskins. I said, subhanallah. I went to my mom. I said, Ma, you would not believe what they're calling that team over there. The Reds. She said, I said, the Redskins. She said, no. I said, I promise you, that's what they call the team. Holy shit. That to me, like, that's not appropriation. That's something else. Appropriation is, we admire this. So, I'm going to be a white boy from California wearing dreadlocks because I like Bob Marley.
Yeah.
That's appropriation. And you got black people being angry at people for doing that. Remember that video I showed you with this white kid had some dreads and then the black girl put her hands on him? I was like, man.
I'll never forget that. It was so annoying.
Man, are you kidding me? You don't put your hands on somebody for wearing it, man.
But when I first heard about the Redskins, I actually, because I'm not a sports person. Anything I know about sports is because you've showed it to me in story form. So that's how he sucks me in. But yeah, when I heard about the Redskins, it was during the time period. What time period was it when it was starting to get recognized that this is kind of, we shouldn't be doing this?
It's been going on for the last decade. I mean, they changed it 2 years ago.
I was
to the Commanders.
Why do I feel like I was like a kid when I first heard about it being
about the Red?
about?
I mean, it probably was. I mean,
I remember thinking, and so did the people around me. I had no clue about anything that you and Dwayne are saying. We were looking at it like, what is wrong with these people? They complain about everything because we were thinking you're being represented by a team. Like your group
Image,
of people,
likeness, yeah.
your image and likeness is being like, oh, this entire team is saying we're fighting for this image. Like this is what we're winning for. Like this is us. And when they win and when they cheer, it's all about that team. So I was never looking at it. To be honest with you, you told me once before, but for some reason it's a little bit out of my head.
About what?
So what I just explained to you, that sounds crazy. Obviously.
I mean, it doesn't sound.
And is that
it doesn't sound
because
crazy to me?
They're putting that logo, but they're not like. What if like a bunch of the proceeds would be actually going to help liberate the community and stuff like that?
Right,
Still no.
Because we'll just treat them like prostitutes.
What? Well, babe.
Well, here's what happened. Here's
Such
what
an
happened.
uncomfortable
There was
conversation on camera.
there was a black ESPN commentator, and he wore a Florida Whiteskins shirt.
I don't think it's gonna hit the same.
Them white folks were mad as hell. He got confronted in the street. Dudes want to square up with him. This is what I'm saying. Like,
okay, but what are people seeing beyond what I explained?
Huh?
You see what I'm saying? Because I like there's like a part of me that's like, this is a big problem, but like the minutia, like I don't understand. I'm missing something.
Well, how come we don't have a team called the Blackskins or the Whiteskins? Because there's more black people in America than Indigenous people, and there's obviously more white people than Indigenous people. So why don't we have a Whiteskins and a Blackskins team?
I know that this is really ignorant, but to me, I think the reason that I feel uncomfortable with the Redskins thing is because obviously that's a group of people.
Imagine a team called the Foreskins. You're going to hell.
So.
But I'm going to laugh while you're going. Go ahead.
Because of how the Indigenous people are treated, like overall, like that's what makes me say, God, there's got to be a problem here. And then obviously the reaction of the white people when they did the Whiteskins thing. I don't have an issue with the Whiteskins.
Would you have an issue with the Orlando Blackskins? And
only,
then there's a logo of a guy with black skin on there.
Only because I've been with you. But if there was different teams and they were going by their skin color, I wouldn't have had an issue.
I believe you. White folks, it's just like my our white friend who
I
says...
hate being this honest on camera.
Our white friend who doesn't see color. And then he went to a black church and all of a sudden he saw color.
Oh, yeah.
So like white folks will tell you to eat all kinds of shit. But then when it happens to them, it's over with. We had one time when one of our guys was really truly guilty and got away with murder and they still won't let it go. So y'all want everybody else to tolerate shit that you guys will never tolerate. And I'm glad. We should learn. Black people should learn. We should learn. But no, but my point is Elvis, I don't
like
go ahead.
There was more information like they called them that when they were like scalping or something. Like I feel like there was something like I still feel like, because again, I understand that it's not fair, it's not balanced because of the way that they're being treated in the country. And then the white people's reaction obviously to the white skin thing, which I still am confused by that. But I still feel like I'm not like completely understanding.
Okay.
Like I remember the time, remember I had taken that picture.
I mean, that's them. Right? Dwayne is there. Talk to him about it. I'm just saying, Dwayne, if you had a team called the Blackskins,
I'm not trying to be ignorant. I want to know, but I don't.
I don't think you're trying to be ignorant. You have different experiences than us, man. I understand.
Well, I want to understand. That's why I'm asking.
I don't think, but can you?
On camera.
You can't. But you see, this is the thing. As I said, we're not in these people's lives. They live such a unique life. Conversely, you've never lived our life.
Right.
So it's ridiculous to expect that you would. Now, I will say, I think it's a little weird that you don't see the problem with calling somebody a redskin or whatever. But I understand how you were socialized. So I'm not offended. Because I think it's a mistake for black people to try to get white people to see everything from their perspective. Why? They're not you. They haven't been through your shit, so they'll never understand. And that's okay. That's okay. Because I've never been a woman. So I don't understand the trials and tribulations and shit, and some of the shit that gets y'all mad, I don't really understand, but whatever. But I think with him and race, even in this conversation, it is such a difficult topic. And there are so many intricacies, and you have to be one of us to understand it, and blah 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 blah, that it makes the dialogue impossible, because if you weren't in this group, if you were in some far left crazy group, they'd be calling you a racist, tarring, feather you.
Well, I know. That's why I feel uncomfortable even saying it.
Man, I don't.
But I'm asking a.
You're married. You're married to a black person.
Well.
So if anybody sends you a message and calls you a racist, man, just, sometimes, man, like, what are you doing?
No, I get that.
You got black kids.
Yeah, I know that, but at the same time, like, I don't. By now, you would think that I would understand what the, like, I know conceptually.
Here's
and I wouldn't put.
Here's D. Chamberlain, and I said this to you when you wore the afro.
That's what I was trying to
bring up. The Indigenous call it masketry, dressing up. What? Indian, NDN, right? Yeah. With a tomahawk chop, then the end zone, it says, stop racism and tell me I'm supposed to feel. Exactly, dude. Exactly. But these people truly believe that they're like doing you a service. That's how they think. It's just how they think. That's how they are. And like, what about blackface? Do you think blackface is
No, I don't think that's appropriate because it was done for entertainment and it was mockery also. And also I've seen, like, you know, after hearing like Cat Williams and stuff talk about how they're always trying to demasculinize, if that's a word, black men by, you know, if they're in any sort of, you know, by having them put dresses on or different stuff like that.
That's not what
so
we're talking
I feel
about.
Like the blackface is like just like another way to like kind of mock the situation.
No, it's just well, you had an afro and you were wearing it like a costume, and then we've got what's his face doing the blackface thing. Like, it's called masketry. I really like the way he said it. He says dressing up in gin with a tomahawk chop in the end zone. It says stop racism. Like, ridiculous. You're taking. It's just like Mulvaney. It's like the Mulvaney thing, right? I was just
gonna say that.
You guys are upset at Mulvaney.
I was like, kind of reminds me of the Mulvaney situation,
right? Because that's what they say. The woman, like, look,
yeah.
And first of all, I've got trans friends. I've got trans friends in this community. Not a fucking single one of them act like that. Not a single one of them.
Right. No, that's 100% true. Yeah.
So, but there have been, and it's really interesting because the whole woman face charge and all that. You heard about that woman face, just like we did black face, woman face. That's what they're calling, trans people. But like, I never heard that term until Mulvaney. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he, as a biological man, has no fucking idea actually what it is to be a woman. So when he's transitioning, he is telling on himself about how he perceived women to be.
Yeah.
Silly.
Emotional, like so emotional.
Financially undisciplined, blah, 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 blah. So, of course,
women can't stand up for yourself. You write a letter and then delete it.
Yeah. And then you go freak out with your hiking heels and all the rest of it, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's my problem.
Spend money you don't have.
Right. So, that's what I'm talking about. It's this dude who says, this is my image of women, and so I'm going to incarnate now as a woman and completely make an absolute mockery.
Yeah.
Because now he's turned women into mascots. So you were able to understand that and be offended by it, right?
I mean, it took me a little while, but I did, yeah.
It didn't take you a while to get offended by Mulvaney.
I sympathized by it.
No, you sympathized when you saw him, but when I read you the article initially, you wanted to cut his throat.
Oh.
So, because, and we were also in the hospital. We had just had Seneca. Because the whole Ulta Beauty thing happened the day after Seneca was born.
I don't remember anything. Seneca's birth was so difficult.
Yeah.
I hardly remember anything.
So anyway, the race stuff with him.
I think that Night Ranger said maybe not understand, but empathizing. And I can definitely empathize with the situation. And I think that even when you had told me, because he's right, I had taken a bunch of pictures, and it was basically like, what would Sori be if I was a cowgirl? What would I be if I was this, if that? So in one of the pictures I was going for like that sort of like a jazz, sort of not jazz, like the blues bar type of thing, like the singer with I had a long black gown on and then I had the afro. Like, okay, what would I look like with this hairstyle? To me, it was like, I wasn't looking at it like I'm creating like a costume out of somebody else's look. To me, it was no different than putting on a blonde wig. But then I didn't even know that you were offended when you saw it until like times later. But no, I can understand that. And with the Indigenous stuff, like, Now I'm talking about like then, like now I wouldn't be comfortable with somebody being like, we're gonna have a black skin team. I'd be like, wait, what? And with the Indigenous stuff, like the more that I hear about it, like especially like the Indigenous women and how they just like go missing, and like literally I watched a couple of documentary things that that Pony had sent me, because these women will just go missing and nobody ever knows where they are, and it just seems like if somebody within the area gets like some sadistic idea, they know that's where they can go to like act out all of their animalistic tendencies, and there's no voice, and it's just silenced and it's forgotten, and like these are women, like human beings made in the image and likeness of God. And then I'm like, the men from that community, it must break their hearts because they're trying to protect their women. At the same time, they have responsibilities, and like if you're doing your responsibility and then shorty goes missing, like it's just, that to me is just absolutely horrible. So when you couple that with the fact that, okay, then you're going to use them like as a mascot, you're not cheering for them. If you were cheering for them, then you would protect them and you would create laws that these lands weren't like somehow outside of like jurisdiction, and these people would get protected. So from that angle, if like we come from that, so Night Ranger, thanks for, you know, kind of, because I'm like trying to understand it, like but it's not something that you can understand, because it sometimes like people's hate or people's disregard for other human beings is not even logical. It's just,
and I mean I'm that way too with
right,
you know,
Dwayne,
certain issues with women and things like that, you know. But and that's why I always say, like, I'm not one of those, if you're not black then you can't comment on black issues. Ridiculous. You're an American, aren't you? So anybody can comment on anything. I'm not one of those people. But what I will say is that it's always better to speak with knowledge instead of you know, your opinion. And if I'm communicating as honestly as I possibly can, then honest communication necessitates that you listen to the arguments of your interlocutor. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I just, you know, we just have to practice being gracious and understanding human weakness, understanding that all of us have our own little, you know, whatever, our biases, our whatever. Mm-hmm. And this is the whole cancel culture thing. Think about this. First of all, Elvis, this shit was happening 50, 60 years ago. Mm. It's 2024, and we're still having this discussion. Mm-hmm. It's 2024. Justin Trudeau's the PM of whatever. He showed up in blackface twice. Right? So, like, we're still dealing with this shit. So, what are we supposed to do with Elvis? Get the fuck out of here. Mm-hmm. You know, like, okay. The propensity for people to exalt a person and then crucify him.
Oh, jeez. Yep.
You know, I had that.
Just watching that.
I had that in my notes.
I had that the whole time I was watching. I was like, oh no.
It's human nature. They'll hail you, then they'll nail you, she said. And it's like, we love doing that, man. We love destroying these people, man. Mm-hmm. We love to see the guy that, you know, he's up there at the top of the world, and people like to see, oh, Elvis is fat and blah, 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 blah. A year ago when Elvis came to town, you were all, hey, Elvis is great, blah, blah, blah. But as soon as that guy that you've been jealous of, you think that you got him where you want him, and now you're doing all the types of crazy shit about him, man. Like, I think that he was a beautiful soul, man. He had a lot of music in him, and I believe he's with the Lord for sure. And it's just, you know. All right, Hell.
Yeah, she said, I remember. I mean, that's the other thing that we were saying. She remembers telling a friend from undergrad school, why is Rachel perspective her main starting point about everything? She told me, when you walk in my shoes, my skin one day, you won't ask such ignorant questions. Oops. But see, I don't like that response. Like, you asked a genuine question because you were trying to understand. Like, I get that some of the questions we ask are ignorant. I get it, but we don't understand it. And it's better than saying that doesn't exist. You guys are just whatever. Like, you're trying to understand. We have to be able to, like, have these uncomfortable conversations. Like, you and I, when we first started those conversations, like, I said some really ignorant shit. And like sometimes like in the weirdest thing will happen, like I'll be like in the middle of the night or something, all of a sudden I'll like hear myself say some of that stuff. I'm like, ugh, why did I say that? But I really didn't get it, you know. And then once you know, unfortunately for me, I had to see a video of, you know, the homie with the Lucy cigarettes, and that was it for me. I was like, what? I could not believe, like I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and it was just absolutely horrible. And then to realize from that moment, because I was always really troubled by racism when I was a kid, but the way that I would comfort myself was the fact that it's done. Slavery's done. Lincoln freed everybody. You know, like I had all those thoughts in my head. And then I remember seeing an article, because we were not like kept from the newspaper. And my sister was like, the newspaper's really interesting. There's a lot of really great stories. Some of them are kind of scary. Some of them are this and that. Like, she was like, this is really interesting. So I'm like, oh, let me start reading. And she was right. Like, as you're reading it, like the stories were definitely more engaging than anything we were allowed to read. And, but it was a man had been tortured, and you saw part of him in the picture. And I couldn't believe they put a person's body in a picture. And it was racially motivated. And I still remember stuff about it. And I just remember being in my basement by myself, just like all of this fear just like came around me, like, and,
so
and this
was
anger.
it a black guy killed somebody?
Yeah, no, it was a black guy that got killed, and he was tortured, and they hung him in the end, and they were like just tortured him, you know, with cigars and all kinds of stuff. And like when I started reading the story, I didn't want to know the story, but then I felt like to just leave the story unfinished. Like I felt like I needed to know. And so I just kept reading and reading and reading until I got to the end. And then I was looking at his feet, and I was like, I can't believe that this is still happening, because I thought racism was done. And I was so alone in my basement. Like I couldn't talk. For some reason, when I was really going through like a big major thing, I never felt like I could talk to anybody. You're the only person I ever felt like I could talk to about stuff. So I had nobody to talk to, and I just was like, just so sad that this actually happened, that the man was actually dead. And that when it was in the paper, I didn't feel like that we were understanding how horrible it was. It still felt like it was just news. That was the last time I read the paper for like, I don't know. I don't know that I really picked up the paper except to read the comics after that.
One of the things though that was crazy about the movie was how, and this is another thing about why you got to give Elvis a pass for the whatever. What was fascinating to me was one of the ways that you can measure what you're doing is who your enemies are.
Wait, say it again.
One of the ways that you can measure what you're doing is who your enemies are. And so if you look at Mr. Presley, his enemies were the U.S. government. Mm-hmm. At the time, when all this is going on in that milieu, you had Malcolm Martin, who were undergoing a counterintelligence operation called COINTELPRO. Mm-hmm. And so it was just a really, really volatile time. And if you stick your neck out, I truly, truly believe that if Elvis would have went John Brown and been all about liberating the Negroes or equalizing the Negroes with white people, man, they would have murked dude, and it would have been the government.
Yeah.
Because the government killed Malcolm, the government killed Martin, the government killed Medgar.
Did you think there was anything significant about like when the TVs were going off when he went into the gun scene, and the TVs were going off, and it was Martin on there, and then you saw Manson. Mm-hmm. And then he I think it was Manson that made him actually shoot. And then there's a whole like theory about MK Ultra and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, like was he afraid that like Manson would come after him, sent by the government? Like I don't know what was going on in his head or what was happening or what they were trying to convey at that scene, but definitely was kind of curious.
Mm-hmm. That's the problem. How can you be ignorant of these indigenous matters when we're part of your history? Actually, we're part of your history. You guys are here first. We're part of your guys' history. Well, that's the problem. We've survived attempted genocide, relocation from land grabs, etc. America. Yeah, and I think, hell, if you look at gay people only identify as gay because that's the most important thing in their life, and then you combine that because those answers are on top of each other, like that's another like communication thing, because like I understand everything is about race, right? Like I completely understand that issue. the problem is, it's almost like the feminism thing is like the job is not done. I don't think. And everybody has, I'm not going to get, but the point of the matter is, I think that we have to look at people in the time and the place that they're in. And they were in the middle of that conversation. It's obvious to us now, but they were in the middle of that conversation. Listen, dear listener, we're in the middle of a couple discussions, okay? And one of us is going to look really fucking crazy in 20 years.
100%.
Right?
100%.
20 years from now, a person might say, do you know, just 2 decades ago, we used to chop up little babies? And do you know that if those little babies made it out of the birth canal alive, when that little girl turns 14 years old and she starts developing, and then she starts noticing the male gaze and she can't deal with it anymore, and she runs into some weirdo who tells her that that's because she's truly a boy. And then she goes out and she gets her breast removed. And then she goes to her little trans Reddit chat, the people who convince her that she was a dude. And she says, when do they grow back? There's a recent report out called the Cass Report. There's been about multiple high-level reports from Europe about the fact that they've been experimenting on these kids. One of these ladies in one of these leaked videos says 100 out of 100 of the kids that she treated cannot achieve orgasm. All types of crazy shit. And we're in the middle of a conversation and people saying a lot of crazy shit that sounds reasonable, that's going to look fucking crazy in 20 years.
Right.
So maybe we should exercise some humility with Mr. Presley. You see what I'm saying? Because they were in the middle of that discussion.
Oh.
You see what I'm saying? It's a national controversy.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're on the wrong side of history, blah, 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 blah. So, you're a sinner. Okay? That's see, the original sin thing protects me from that bullshit. Oh, you're on the wrong side. Man, shut the fuck up. Wrong side of history.
I would say, were you going more?
No, I just think that, like, I believe as a black, and again, I'm ignorant of Presley. Somebody might send me an email, and he might have been the most racist person on the planet. But Abraham Lincoln was an avowed racist, and I appreciate what he did. So, man, rest in peace to the homie. I think the biggest thing for me was, sure, maybe you want him going to the Washington Monument and preaching and saying, let these Negroes go, and I took their music for them, and blah, blah, blah. And if I die, I die. I'm going to die with the Negroes. Okay, great. Okay, great. But here's a question. What if that's not his role? What if his role, when God was like, okay, I'm going to make this dude, I'm going to give him a really, really deep voice and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to make him a little bit of a rebel. And that rebellion is going to make it so that he hangs around with some Negroes. On the downside, the rebellion is also going to mean that he's going to be rooting 4 or 5 girls a night. But this guy's music is going to bring people together. That was his role on the earth. His role on the earth. There's all this shit happening. There's King. There's Malcolm. We didn't need anybody else to preach. We had that covered. But what Elvis did was that through his music and that guitar, I was talking to one of my friends and I said, bruh, you took wood and copper and a couple steel knobs and you changed the world. I'm talking about a guitar, right? You changed the world with this little... So when God's looking down at Elvis, look, God takes sin seriously. He sent Jesus to the cross, right? But I believe that was his purpose in the world and he served it. And that's the reason he died at 42. Because people like that are not supposed to be around for long. Because the mission was over. You did what you needed to do. You got black people and white people together to listen to some music. And you know what? That might be silly. They might both go home to their segregated cloisters at the end of the show. But then people on the drive home, like, I don't know, man. That...
Because when you all go to a show together...
That Jerome guy, the way he was dancing and...
Yeah.
I don't know. It sure seems like they're not...
Yeah.
I don't know. And that's all it takes. Look at this channel, all music, man. And a lot of our folks are dead, man. But they brought us together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Okay, we're together. No, we're together now. And all of us are together now in this moment, and there's been nothing but suffering, hardship, pain, all the rest of it. That's the reason you listen to heavy metal. You do not listen to heavy metal because your life is all frilly and shit. You listen to heavy metal because if you don't, you'll jump off a fucking bridge, right? So that's the power of music. It saved lives. It saved a bunch of those, my life a bunch of times. It saves lives and it brings people together because it transcends the rational aspect of the mind.
Yep.
And that's why I always cringe when I see these neo-Gnostics or neo-Stoics or whatever that want to completely divorce the emotional faculty from us and just stay with logic. Man, there is very type logic to remain a racist. Right? Especially if you're white. If you're white, you're currently the king of the hill, and racism makes it so that your kids will be the king of the hill. You can call it immoral, but it makes sense, doesn't it? That's human nature. That's how we are. But what?
I mean, that's why the Black Israelites say, as soon as we get power, you'll be licking our boots.
Correct. Correct. Because they got all this vengeance and hate in their heart for people. Correct. But music, as Jet is saying, it's what brought us together. Mm-hmm. It's what God used to bring us together. It's one of the reasons I know Islam's a false religion. I don't need to know anything else about the Quran, none of that shit. Literally.
Shut down music.
Oh, you're against music? And honestly, that's the reason we're going to beat them. The biggest book of the Bible is a book of music. Mm-hmm. So
that's true. So
you can say Elvis should have stood next to Dr. King. He should have stood next to Malcolm if he was really serious, blah, 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 blah. That was not his purpose. It's not why God put him here. He's here to convict people of their own hypocrisy, challenge social norms, liberate black people a little bit, bring people together, have them enjoy and contribute to the population. Because as my man Night Ranger says, those hip gyrations helped a ton. Yes, I am certain that those hip gyrations went to contribute to the population of this country in very, very, very significant ways.
Oh my gosh.
Okay?
Wow.
Because I'm sorry, this is going to get a little bad, but them white girls, they was out there seeing this boy, and then they go home and jump on their boyfriend. You know what's going on. You know what's going on. Oh, man. Shout out to Elvis Presley. You know what? We might be just completely caught up in Hollywood shit. You know what I'm saying? We might just be caught up in Hollywood shit and all the rest of it. And like, maybe we're like embracing a guy and we're falling for it. Maybe he's like the Grand Wizard of the KKK. I don't know. All I can tell you is, number one, that actor's incredible.
Oh, yeah.
The dude that played Elvis is incredible.
Yeah.
He also played Fade Rafa in Dune Part 2, which, by the way, we're probably going to do Dune Part 2 when it's available.
Yep, 100%.
But that depends. Hell, let's work on figuring out how to systematize this a little bit more and streamline this, the three of us, so that we can keep doing this. I think this is a really good thing. This review went a little long, but it was a 2.5 hour movie, guys. I didn't want to skimp it. Again, everybody.
Nick, if you have one question to ask us about it, post the question right in that comment section. Can you just pull up your comment section too? I'm not sure which one he's in. I just want to make sure if he had one question, we would have answered it.
Agree. Hey, oh shit, I was missing all these ones. All I'm saying, oh man, I missed all of these. Ah, shit. All I say, I don't want to hear anyone say but Trump from now on. Exactly. I agree. Vin, you are struggling to lose your problem. Big change is hard to find. I don't know what that means. I don't know what you are struggling to lose your problem. I don't know what that means. Maybe you can clarify.
And just Chamberlain, instruct us how to select the next movie reaction. Well, I should just probably create a tier on Patreon.
Yeah, well, the three of us will hook up. I think that'll probably be the easiest thing. But there's got to be a group element to this. You know, see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
we got to talk. We can talk about it offline. But yeah, we're gonna work really hard on that. Jesus didn't mention color of people. Okay,
Dwayne,
what does that mean, Jen? Like, can you just tell me what you're trying to get at? And by the way, I've never seen you before, so thank you for showing up. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Dwayne, I would say that kind of, you were like, how can you not know this stuff? Like, we're part of your history. And then that's when Vinny said, well, we're part of your history. This is really bizarre. I do not understand why the history books that we were given were so terrible. Like, I'm not going to put it all on them, because if I'm not interested in something, it's very difficult for me to remember, or if you overload me with too much information, or if I'm stressed out. Those are all points, and I was always really stressed out when I was in school. Well, anyway, the way that they would talk about everything, like, the white people were always the good guys, and like, I had a real good guy, bad guy mentality on everything. So even like when they, like, remember, what did it say? Like, they didn't call them like slave owners, they called them like
supervisors,
and so, you know, you kind of got the idea that like slavery was happening, there was people that were really horrible, but then there was like Christian people that were like, you know what, we'll like go along with the system, and we're gonna take care of these people and keep their families together. Like, I didn't have any friggin' clue how all of that was, or how terrible it was. The same with the native stuff. Like, you know, you had, I think I did know about like the blankets, like giving them diseased blankets, and like, you know, like killing a bunch of them, but they always presented the information like, we were trying to come in, and they were savages, is what we were heard. Like, I mean, I don't know if that was in the book, but that was the idea that you got. Like, these people were like, you couldn't reason with these people. But then we also had the stories of now I can't remember his name, the one Indian that supposedly helped us figure out how to have our first Thanksgiving and all that. Mm-hmm. So like, it was a little bit, I just don't understand why they presented it the way that they did, because it was Christian schools that I was going to. So they should have just been like, this is what sinners do. This is what sinners do when they have power. And so even though these people came over here for religious freedoms, like, look at how they treated these people. It just wasn't presented that way. And it looked like you just were on the side of the, you know, these people were just trying to survive. They came over here and they were getting attacked by these people, so they're just trying to protect themselves. Like, it wasn't presented how it actually was. And then, you know, it's more looked at like, and then we gave them like their own land, not realizing it was theirs. And we took it and then gave them probably something that wasn't as great over there. It's just,
well, they do I just think that people like Tucker Carlson, etc., they want to ensure that the next generation of white folks sits on the throne of the earth like they were.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's crazy. I think that's...
But we're Christians. And the books that we were using were not... It wasn't like history books that were, you know, just raw history and we're talking about it. Like, these were books that were geared, like, almost every page had a Bible verse on it, bro. You don't understand. And I think that's part of how I like... Because I was always more interested in reading the Bible verses than I was in reading the history.
John Smith says, try to invent a narrative where color isn't mentioned. It happened thousands of years ago. What happened thousands of years ago? What are you talking about? Are you saying slavery's a narrative? It didn't happen? That's new. I never heard that one. Is there people like that? I'm not being funny. Because he said thousands of years ago, so I don't know. What are we talking about here, bro?
I don't understand what he's trying to say either.
Well, give him time to respond.
No, my hip gyrations generated 2 daughters. LOL.
Yeah, there you go. But like, of course they're not going to tell you that stuff in the history. They want to keep they don't want you getting any funny ideas about equality and shit.
I can't tell you how sad that makes me and how disappointed like that feeling is, because, you know, like you trust these people to tell you what's up, but you're right. Like, and you know that that's what it is, because it's, you know, it's not like anybody was like encouraging, you know, race mixing. You know what I mean?
Where you were at. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, that wasn't, I mean, I don't even think there was one black person in the entire school.
I thought you was a Christian. I am a Christian. I'm trying to get you to explain to me what happened thousands of years ago because I'm legit confused, bro. So if you could just say straight out what you're saying, that would be like really helpful.
Maybe he's talking about like Adam and Eve and stuff, and so there wasn't...
He said, try to invent a narrative where color isn't mentioned to happen thousands of years ago.
It happened thousands of years ago. So
I don't know what he's talking about.
The narrative that doesn't mention color would have been the story of Adam and Eve.
Thousands of years ago? Oh, just give him time. Give him time. The Anunnaki dropped off a baby on planet Earth 2,024 years ago. I'm not sure. All right, so that's my final take on Elvis. It was he's a flawed individual, obviously, like all of us are. Surprise, surprise. But he was immensely talented, and it's clear that he was doing God's work. Maybe, a Christianese phrase that people like to use is that God can draw a straight line with a crooked stick. Mm-hmm. Okay? So God had his purpose, and it would have been a mistake for him to get up there and be Dr. King. He wasn't Dr. King. He was fucking Elvis, and he was wonderful. So shout out to him. Rest in peace to the homie. I have full confidence we're going to see you again, buddy. I think when he showed up, the Lord was like, yeah, what's with the hits, man? You didn't really do that shit with the hits, nigga. Come on in.
You didn't do that shit.
Just come in. You didn't need to go all extra like that, bro. But come in anyway. We good. That's why I had to let you go on that toilet, bro, because I can't have people looking up to you, shaking your hips and shit like that. Like, you gotta, we gotta flatten out the curve here so people don't end up gyrating their hips and blasting the population and shit. Census Bureau is all shut down, all the rest of it.
Well, I guess we must have made
we have reached the end, my friends. Avita Zane.
Thanks for coming through, you guys.
Russell says, I need to watch that movie, that's for sure. Russell, we just got done watching it. We have just hit the 5 hour and 14-minute mark. We have been together all day, basically.
If you look at the link, well, you can find us on Rumble, or you can find us in the link in the description of this video. If you're looking on YouTube, you'll be able to see. Well, no, actually, it's not there.
Alex Jones told me Obama and Hillary smell like sulfur. You know what that is, bro?
What is that?
Sulfur?
Oh, because of
the lake of fire.
I didn't know if that was like one of you guys, because I know y'all are from the same
what the
group
Quran
of people.
What the Quran say? That you absolutely are fuel for the fire. It says.
Yikes.
It wouldn't surprise me though. Hillary and Obama are two of some of the most evil people on the face of the earth. Wallahi, they're the worst. Shout out to Luminous Night. We will pray for peace because we got a lot of trouble. I'm not going to see you anywhere on Rumble, my man. I'm out of here. I got to spend time with my girl. I've been spending 5 hours and 15 minutes with you people.
If you go on Rumble, though, you'll be able to find this video in the past.
Go back to Rumble real quick.
You'll be able to watch it with us.
Where's Hell?
As we were watching it.
Where'd you go? Hell, you around? Okay. Nick, man, great job, bro. And what a crazy, crazy thing to do 2 songs after, especially the Suspicion one, which I really, really enjoyed because now that we had the context to it, that was a really good instinct, a really good touch.
Yeah, I thought that too.
If you guys get together and, come up and select bands and things like that, or movies, it's wide open. We do not have to do it this way. I mean, really, it's how you want it. So you might say, I want less talking, I want more talking, blah, 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 blah. It's really up to you guys. Obviously, we're going to try to keep it so that there's a flow.
Yeah. Because
that's kind of one of our commitments is to try to see the thing from beginning, middle, and end without the interruptions. But obviously, there's blocking issues and things like that. So we finally came up, I think, with a solution that's going to work for us.
It was so nice to not get blocked and
not
shut
get
down.
Blocked, right? And then it's going to be there for everybody. So it's not going to, if you want to see it tomorrow, it's there.
Yeah, 100%. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and guys, don't forget on Patreon, I update that list. And it's a free post. You don't even have to be signed up for Patreon to be able to see that one. You do have to be signed up to get the updates for the post. So if you want to get updates when I update it, then just, you can jump on the $1 tier or whatever.
I will say that's valuable just because we're not, if you haven't noticed, very good at
announcing. I posted it for the whole month though, so every time something gets added, it gets added to that list.
And guys, I still missed it. So what I'm saying is that
I had the right time posted up on Patreon.
Yeah, you probably want to get on that so you don't miss these things. I missed a couple of my folks that I feel really terrible about it. Are there still Anunnaki around today? I believe so. Yeah, great geopolitical news happening. Yeah, we're going to have to go to the other side on Middle America tomorrow and talk about the Iranians. Let me just be careful. Ya Allah. All right, guys, we are out of here. Much love to all you beautiful people. This was great. Thank you for making this such a great time.
Yeah.
This is the first of many. Season 3 is around the corner. You'll know it's really here when we shoot the new commercial. Vin out.
Sorry out.
Gone.